Let's unravel the story. The film begins with a priest named Brennan inside a confessional booth, speaking with a detective priest named Harris. Harris shows Brennan a photo of a baby and tells him that this child has been born through a sinister ritual. Even though the baby looks human, it is not. Its birth was the result of a dark, unholy process. Now that baby has grown into a teenager, and the cult behind its birth is simply waiting for the right time to execute their next plan. After revealing this, Father Harris suddenly admits that he can no longer continue the investigation. Outside, Harris tells Brennan that he would rather die than keep digging into this horrifying case. Just then, a shard of glass suddenly falls, striking Harris on the head. The impact causes a metal pipe to slash through his scalp, leaving a deep wound. But what exactly were they talking about? In Rome, Italy, in 1971, a young nun named Margaret arrives at a church where she has been assigned to serve. She is welcomed by a priest named Gabriel, who has been sent to pick her up. Soon after, she meets a high-ranking church official named Lauren, who seems pleased with her arrival. After some small talk, Lauren invites Margaret to leave with her. During their journey, Margaret is shocked to see a large protest taking place. Lauren explains that workers are striking because their wages have been cut. When they finally reach their destination, Margaret is introduced to Sister Silva, the head of the convent. Silva offers to give Margaret a tour of the place. While showing her around, Silva explains that the church runs an orphanage for young girls. There is also a maternity ward where pregnant women, who are mostly nuns, give birth. As they continue the tour, Silva introduces Margaret to a nun named Angelica, who seems troubled. Angelica was an orphan raised in this place. Their conversation is interrupted when Silva hears a child screaming and rushes off to check on them. Left alone, Margaret hears strange noises coming from one of the rooms. Inside, she finds a teenage girl named Carlita, who appears deeply distressed. Margaret is startled by Carlita's bizarre behavior and asks why she has been isolated from the other children. Silva explains that Carlita is being punished for constantly causing trouble. Afterward, Silva informs Margaret that a man named Luca will escort her to the dormitory. That night, Margaret arrives at an old, quiet dormitory. Assuming her roommate is out, she begins unpacking her belongings. Before going to sleep, Margaret kneels to pray. Suddenly, she hears a noise behind the door. When she turns, she sees a terrifying figure of a nun. But in an instant, the vision disappears. It was only a hallucination. Still, Margaret feels uneasy about this place. Moments later, her roommate returns. The stylish young woman quickly changes into casual clothes and introduces herself as Luz. The next day, Margaret teaches Italian to a group of children. She enjoys the warm atmosphere but notices Carlita sitting silently, behaving strangely. That night, Margaret is supervising the children as they go to bed when she realizes that Carlita's bed is empty. Concerned, she goes looking for her. She stumbles upon a group of nuns gathered around Carlita, seemingly performing a strange ritual. What disturbs her even more is that some of the nuns turn to look at her and giggle eerily. Just then, Luz appears and invites Margaret to go out with her. Before leaving, Luz insists that Margaret change into a different outfit. It turns out that Luz is a rebellious nun who sneaks out to nightclubs. Margaret, feeling self-conscious in her revealing dress, hesitates. But in the end, Luz drags her along to the club. After arriving at the nightclub, Luz immediately invited Margaret to take a drink. As they sipped their drinks, two charming young men, Alfonso and Paolo, approached them and invited them to party together. Seeing that it could be fun, Luz happily accepted the offer. However, Margaret was hesitant and only exchanged glances with her companion while Luz enjoyed herself on the dance floor. Margaret's companion then suggested they get another drink and led her to a table. As they made small talk, he noticed Margaret getting tipsy and pulled her onto the dance floor. Overcome by the alcohol, Margaret felt as if her faith and devotion were fading, and she found herself getting closer to Paolo. The next morning, Margaret woke up with messy hair, her bed soaked in sweat. Panicked, she turned to Luz and asked what had happened the previous night. Luz casually told her that she had been completely drunk and ended up spending the night with Paolo. Shocked and filled with regret for committing such a sin, Margaret rushed to the church to pray and seek forgiveness. Unbeknownst to her, a priest was watching her from behind. Later, as Margaret sat deep in thought in the town square, she was approached by Father Brennan. He warned her to be careful around a girl named Carlita, as evil forces were always near her. Confused by his words, Margaret listened as Brennan invited her to visit his house to discuss something important. Sometime later, while looking after the children, Margaret noticed Carlita was missing. A young girl told her that Carlita had been sent to the punishment room. Alarmed, Margaret quickly went to check on her. She pleaded with Silva to release Carlita, but Silva refused. After some time, Margaret finally got the chance to talk to Carlita, who seemed deeply depressed. However, their conversation was interrupted by a sudden scream from the maternity room. Margaret rushed to see what was happening and discovered that Silva and the other nuns were in the middle of assisting a fellow sister in labor. The pregnant woman screamed in unbearable pain, her cries echoing through the room. It was terrifying. She occasionally glanced at Margaret, who was watching through a small window. But the moment that truly shocked Margaret was when she saw a demonic hand emerging from the woman's womb. Overcome with horror, she fainted. After undergoing a medical checkup, a priest tried to comfort Margaret, telling her it was normal for a new sister to faint upon witnessing childbirth. He then suggested she spend time with the children to distract herself. While playing with the kids, Margaret noticed Angelica talking to Carlita. Curious, she approached them and saw a drawing that Carlita had made. It depicted a pregnant woman. Angelica then mentioned that the figure in the drawing was actually a baby boy. Suddenly, Angelica's demeanor shifted, and she walked away, leaving Margaret puzzled. As she tried to process what had just happened, a group of children invited her and Carlita to play. During the game, Margaret was startled to see Angelica completely soaked, smiling strangely. Determined to find answers, Margaret decided to meet with Brennan to discuss Carlita and the strange occurrences at the orphanage. Brennan showed her a photo of a baby surrounded by nuns, claiming that the baby in the picture was most likely Carlita, and that the nuns in the photo were part of a secret cult. He then revealed a shocking truth. The place where Margaret worked was home to 2 churches. One of them was a cult obsessed with creating the Antichrist. They believed they could control him once he was born. According to their findings, Carlita was destined to give birth to the devil. The evidence? She was born at exactly 6 o'clock on the 6th day of the 6th month. 666, the infamous number of the beast. Brennan, determined to continue his investigation, asked Margaret to secretly search for baby records to confirm the truth. But overwhelmed by fear and disbelief, Margaret hurriedly left the place, unable to process what she had just learned. While on the bus, Margaret couldn't shake off her curiosity and asked Gabriel about the location of the archive room. Gabriel, who knew about the archives, quickly told her to hold off the conversation, as Silva was watching them closely. At the museum, Carlita noticed Margaret constantly approaching her, which made her uneasy. Margaret then took Carlita aside to talk privately. Without wasting any time, she asked Carlita about the strange and terrible things happening to her. Carlita admitted that she often had dark feelings and terrifying visions. Hearing this, Margaret shared that she, too, used to experience the same thing when she was Carlita's age. But as she grew older, she realized it was just her imagination and overthinking. However, Carlita insisted that what she was going through was real. Feeling misunderstood, Carlita walked away and sat quietly in the corner. But then, Margaret saw something chilling. A nun standing behind Carlita, smiling eerily while resting her hands on the girl's shoulders. Just then, Silva suddenly appeared. What exactly was Margaret experiencing? Still in shock, Margaret was taken away by Silva as protests outside had turned into a violent riot. As she stepped outside, she saw angry demonstrators screaming, flipping over cars, and destroying public property in chaos. While trying to evacuate the children from the orphanage, Margaret got separated from the group in the middle of the riot. Amidst the turmoil, she suddenly felt an eerie, demonic presence touching her. The sensation was unbearable, almost like she was being tormented. Silva noticed something strange happening to Margaret, but at the same time, Margaret felt like the sinister presence was tightening its grip on her. That night, Silva summoned Margaret to discuss something important. Silva informed her that her initiation as a nun would be postponed. Shocked by the decision, Margaret questioned Silva, leading to a heated argument. In the end, Silva warned her to stay away from Carlita. On her way home, Margaret spotted Paolo on the street and decided to approach him. However, when she got closer, Paolo seemed terrified and kept repeating, "Your head, your head." Confused, Margaret tried to get more information, but before she could react, a drunk driver crashed into Paolo, pinning him against another car. As he lay there in excruciating pain, Paolo desperately begged for help. Margaret rushed to his side, trying to pull him free, even holding him in her arms. But suddenly, pedestrians began screaming at her. She instinctively let go, only to realize Paolo had already died, his lifeless body crushed, his legs stuck between the bumper. Days later, Margaret and the children watched as Luz prepared for her nun initiation ceremony. A wave of sadness washed over Margaret as she was no longer being considered for the position. During the ceremony, unable to suppress her curiosity, she quietly slipped out of the hall to investigate something. Inside a secluded room, Margaret noticed a desk that seemed suspicious. Following her instincts, she examined the wall behind it and saw that the wallpaper was uneven. When she looked closer, she discovered a hidden keyhole. Without hesitation, she inserted the key she had found earlier and unlocked a secret passage. In the hidden basement, Margaret searched frantically for the birth records Pastor Brennan had told her about. After digging through classified documents, she finally found them and quickly grabbed the files, intending to show them to Brennan. As she rushed to escape, Margaret tried to take Carlita with her, but just as she was about to leave, Silva and the other nuns caught her in the act. While hiding, Margaret reassured Carlita that she would find a way to get her out of this place. But before she could act, the nuns suddenly attacked her. She fought back with all her might, and amidst the struggle, she made a horrifying discovery. Carlita had the mark of 666 inside her mouth. Realizing the shocking truth, Margaret barely had time to react before the nuns overpowered her. As punishment for her defiance, she was locked away in the punishment room. That night, while Margaret was asleep, she suddenly panicked when she heard strange whispers telling her to lift the carpet. As she pulled it back, she found a series of eerie drawings beneath it. She tried to understand their meaning, but before she could process it, she felt herself slipping into a trance-like state. Suddenly, she snapped back to reality when she saw a wide-open mouth right in front of her face. Margaret tried to convince herself that it was all just an illusion, but then she noticed a shadow in the corner of the room. The shadow grew larger, moving closer to her, until she realized it was a terrifying figure. The entity then let out a deafening scream directed at her. Just as the terror escalated, Gabriel arrived in time to rescue Margaret. He quickly grabbed the hidden documents and led her away. At Brennan's residence, Gabriel handed over the documents and explained that they had just escaped from the orphanage. Knowing time was running out, Brennan immediately began examining the files. As he went through them, he was shocked to discover the extent to which the cult had gone in their attempts to give birth to a satanic child. According to the records, they had failed repeatedly because the children born were always female, while they needed a male child. Brennan then speculated that they might now be trying a different approach, forcing the girl to conceive with a demonic entity to produce a male offspring. Margaret grew suspicious, realizing that the baby in Brennan's photo might not be Carlita after all. Carlita had the demonic mark inside her mouth, not on her head. If that were the case, then they needed to find a child with the mark on their head instead. Margaret was horrified when she found a file with no photograph, suggesting the existence of another demonic child besides Carlita. While re-examining the baby photo, a chilling memory surfaced, Paolo's final words urging her to check her own head. Then, we are taken back to the night Margaret got tipsy at the club. Contrary to what she had believed, she never slept with Paolo. Instead, after getting intoxicated, she was unknowingly offered to the cult as part of a ritual. The horrifying truth unfolded. Margaret herself was the demonic child, unknowingly married to a demon. Realizing this, Brennan immediately checked her head, confirming that the baby in the photo wasn't Carlita, but Margaret. Brennan then put the pieces together. Carlita was merely a backup plan in case Margaret's demonic union failed. After all, Carlita was still too young to carry a satanic child. But the most alarming revelation was that today was the 6th day of the 6th month, an ominous date for the cult's plans. Panicked, Brennan and Gabriel decided to take Margaret to a doctor to prevent the birth of the satanic child. But as they hurried to escape, they noticed a suspicious car following them. Strangely, the car took a sudden turn, as if trying not to draw attention. However, at that moment, Margaret began experiencing severe nausea. Then, out of nowhere, whether due to panic or the influence of the demon, their car crashed into another vehicle. Margaret survived the impact, but something terrifying happened. She lost consciousness, and when she came to, her body began moving unnaturally, as if possessed. The scene was utterly horrifying. Before long, members of the Satanic Church arrived and took Margaret away. Sometime later, Margaret woke up in a ritual chamber, already prepared for the birth of the demon child. Cardinal Lawrence stood before her, explaining that she had been chosen by the devil to give birth. As he spoke, Margaret was sedated, preparing her for delivery. Inside the surgical room, the cultists anxiously prayed, desperately hoping the child would be a boy. Then, the moment of truth arrived. The doctors revealed that Margaret was carrying twins. One was a girl, and the other was a boy. The birth they had been waiting for had finally happened, and everyone was overwhelmed with gratitude. Amid the joy and celebration, Margaret, who had just regained consciousness, begged to see the baby she had given birth to. As she held the baby in her arms, Lawrence thanked her for bringing this child into the world. But then, Margaret suddenly attacked Lawrence, and it became clear that she intended to do the same to the baby, realizing the curse it carried. However, she couldn't bring herself to go through with it. Margaret was then subjected to extreme pain at the hands of Luce, her former roommate, who was now fully devoted to the cult. After taking the baby, Silva gathered everyone and ordered his followers to burn everything down, literally everything, to erase any trace of their satanic rituals. But what they didn't realize was that Carlita had managed to slip away to rescue Margaret. As the fire spread, Margaret desperately tried to protect the baby girl. At that moment, Carlita arrived to help, and we could see that once the cult had secured the demon's chosen child, they no longer needed the demon itself, so they burned it. Meanwhile, in a car, Silva and Luz were given strict orders to hand over Margaret's baby to a high-ranking American official for adoption. However, they were also instructed to keep a close watch on the child at the designated birthing facility. Working alongside hospital staff, they arranged for the official's newborn to be secretly swapped with Silva's baby. Fast forward 5 years, Carlita, Margaret, and her daughter were living together peacefully. But one day, in the middle of their warm and quiet life, Margaret was startled by an unexpected visitor. It was Brennan. He had survived the accident. He had come to warn Margaret that the satanic cult still knew she and the others were alive. He urged her to be extremely careful, especially when it came to protecting her daughter, because danger would soon come for them. Before leaving, Brennan revealed the name of the baby boy who had been taken in by the official. His name was Damien. Thanks for watching, and bye-bye.